Welcome everyone, it's your boy IQ MMA, and today I just wanted to take some time to reflect on the UFC fight that's just gone by this weekend. Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier 2. Okay? Within my network, I've been getting a few questions and I'm seeing a lot of things that have been said. Okay? I'm seeing things like Conor McGregor is washed up, he should retire, he's not good, he lost to a bum. So all of these statements are, in my opinion, quite wild. The reason why I say this is because when you have a look at Conor McGregor's record, okay, and you have a look at some of the guys that he's fought, Dustin Poirier, Cowboy, Khabib, Nate Diaz, Eddie Alvarez, Jose Aldo, they are all top names within the featherweight and lightweight division in the UFC. And I think what a lot of people, what a lot of casuals don't understand about the UFC is that the UFC is the Premier League of MMA. So you have the sport of MMA, and the UFC is the Premier League. So when you compare MMA to boxing, boxing has several different governing bodies and loads of promoters that can promote fights. In the MMA world, all or a vast majority of the top fighters fight in the UFC. Therefore, you don't get many UFC fighters that go a long period of time undefeated. Okay, I think if you have a look at Conor's record, he only lost 2 fights before actually getting into the UFC. Okay, so he got into the UFC, he had a record of 11-2. Okay, and Conor McGregor is considered a top fighter in MMA. So I think, again, a lot of casuals just need to understand that MMA isn't like boxing, okay? MMA fighters or fighters in the UFC are always fighting the top. When you're in the top 15, you're always fighting somebody who's at that level. So that's really important to consider. Moving on to this idea that Dustin Poirier is a bum, okay? So Dustin Poirier with a record of 27 wins and 6 losses. He's 32 right now, but I believe that this guy has been in the UFC since a very young age. Okay, so if we have a look at Dustin's record, he's been in the UFC, okay, since 2011. Okay, so he's been in the UFC since he was like 21, 22, so a decade inside of the octagon, okay? And with a fighter like Dustin Poirier, okay, if you go down to his most recent fights, he fought a top contender in Dan Hooker, okay, an up-and-coming prospect. He lost to Khabib, who is undefeated and considered the GOAT amongst the lightweight and many other divisions in MMA. And if you have a look at his wins, Max Holloway, unanimous decision. Eddie Alvarez, round 2 stoppage. Okay, Justin Cagey, round 4 stoppage. Anthony Pettis, okay, stoppage again. Jim Miller, stoppage again. And Dustin Poirier has been at the top level, the elite level of the UFC, for many, many years now. So I believe it is unfair to say that he is a bum. Dustin Poirier is definitely not a bum. He is at the top of the pile when it comes to the elite of the UFC lightweight division. So I just wanted to touch on that. Looking into the fight now, so into the actual fight that went down, okay, I found it really interesting that Dustin Poirier went for a takedown within the first minute of the fight. Literally, he went for that first takedown. And I believe the reason why he did that was so that he could start draining some of Conor's explosive energy, okay? So instead of in the first round, if you compare it to the first fight or in many other fights that Conor has had, okay, Conor McGregor likes to punch or kick. So explosive punches and explosive kicks in the first round. When Dustin went for that takedown in the first round, a lot of the explosive energy that Conor would have used was going to go into defending the takedown, making sure his back doesn't touch the mat, making sure that he can get to the cage as quick as he can, and ultimately getting up. I believe that had an effect on Conor, So kudos to Dustin for implementing that. Second thing, what everyone's been talking about, the calf kicks. Okay, so typically in MMA, you get a lot of people who, in MMA, in Muay Thai, in Dutch kickboxing, okay, a lot of people like to kick to the thigh. Okay, so you kick to the thigh area and try and get your shots off there, and you want to try and bruise the area, dead the area off, so that fighters are a lot more stationary. They find it a lot harder to move. Okay, what you find over the years in MMA is that fighters are beginning to use the calf, or they're beginning to attack the calf, to kick the calf, and again, towards the same effect, so that they can slow the fighter down, so that the fighter is more of a sitting duck and is unable to defend more shots. And that's quite important. That was a really important kind of strategy in this fight. When you have a look at the first fight between Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier, again, this fight was at featherweight. They were both a lot lighter, but Conor's style has changed. It's changed over the years. Conor McGregor used to be quite, on his feet. He used to bounce around a bit more. He used to throw in kind of capoeira style kicks. And I suppose when you compare it to the fight the weekend just gone, you can see that Conor is a lot more heavy on that front foot. Okay, and generally throughout that fight, he's a lot more flat-footed. The reason why he's flat-footed is so that he can throw punches with a bit more torque and a bit more power. Okay, so he can try and knock Dustin out. So when you have a look at Conor's knee, you have a look at his leg, that whole kind of segmented area, it's in a really good position to be kicked. Okay, he's not so mobile, so he can be kicked. Okay, and especially having that calf area ready like that, Dustin also being a southpaw, he's going to be able to attack the calf and really get to that muscle. So moving forward from this fight, kind of taking away what we've learned, I believe that Conor McGregor needs to be a bit more dynamic if they rematch. Okay, so I feel like he needs to use his footwork a bit more so that he can actually evade some of Dustin's shots. I don't actually think Conor McGregor did terrible in this fight. If you have a look at the first and towards the start of the second round, Conor McGregor was landing flush with some of those left hands. And there was maybe a few times where Dustin himself even said in the post interview, he said that, Conor buzzed him. And that's what Conor does. That left hand that Conor has is the touch of death, as Faraz Zahabi likes to say. And he's knocked a lot of people out with that left hand. Or he's, maybe stunned some people so he can set up the ground and pound, which ultimately finishes a fight. So I believe that Conor McGregor needs to be a lot more dynamic. I'm not saying he needs to abandon, the heavier style on the foot. I know he's been working that since the Mayweather fight, but I feel like a lot of the success he had in the first fight, you can see that he was on the balls of his feet a lot more. He would vary his shots more, so he kicked Justin in the head, then he threw some punches, then he did a back kick to the body as well. So I think it's important that with someone like Dustin, you vary your shots and you're quite dynamic, you're quite explosive, and you're using your movement a lot more. I also feel like Conor McGregor needs to work on some sort of defense or counter for whenever Dustin next decides to try and kick him in his calf. I feel like that would be very useful for him to kind of work on. When I look at Dustin's style, okay, so Dustin's style moving forward into the next fight, I believe that Dustin can continue to apply that same style that he used in this fight and in the Dan Hooker fight. Okay, when I watched this fight with Dan Hooker, I can see that Dustin, he would like to strike, he would engage with Dan Hooker, he would engage in the clinch, and then in the next second, he'd be straight away down at the legs, hip level, okay, trying to get the takedown. Dustin's not really a ground fighter, so when Dustin gets the takedown, he's not necessarily trying to take you down. He's just trying to get you to work so that you can burn some energy, so that when he comes back up with strikes, you're going to have a lot less to give and you're not going to expect it. I also see Colby Covington implementing a similar style in his fights against Robbie Lawler and against Tyron Woodley. He's done a similar type of thing. So maybe this is something that American Top Team like to work on. They like to work on that style of, being upstairs, striking, okay? Once the opponent gets comfortable with the striking, immediately switch up the tempo and go for a takedown. And then coming up and down between the two levels to make things really difficult and awkward for your opponent. So I believe that Dustin needs to apply that style. I'd like to say that Dustin should continue applying the calf kicks, but McGregor is a very smart guy. And personally, I believe that when he goes away in camp, he's going to be looking at how he can set up traps. So the next time Dustin throws a calf kick, McGregor might have something up his sleeve. So I wouldn't necessarily tell Dustin to do that again. I'd maybe tell him to work on something else. And that's it from me. Okay, I hope you all enjoyed this video and my kind of review and breakdown of this. Okay, please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below. It's your boy IQ MMA, and I'm done. Oos.